Welcome into hardcore Penn State football. Penn State falls to Oregon 30-24 in double overtime in the whiteout game on Saturday night. Penn State's offense mustered just 3 points in the first 3 quarters. The Penn State defense too worn out to hold on in overtime. We have all your questions, what this means, and more moving forward. Please make sure you've liked the video and subscribed, whether you're watching live on YouTube or on podcast platform. Appreciate you guys being here. Welcome into hardcore Penn State football. I'm Corey Listoki. With me, as always, the great Sean Kane. How you doing today, Sean?
Had better Mondays, Corey. You know, when I got in the elevator at work today, my boss is a Penn State alum and got in the elevator. She's like, "How's your weekend?" I was like, "Oh, not bad, you know, small talk." And then she goes, I think they got to fire Franklin." I'm like, guy, blending my work life and everything together. just what I want.
We had that conversation a couple times that people at my work have now figured out that I have a podcast. And so I got asked that a lot today, and I just kept it very simple. It sucked. They're like, "What?"
Yeah, that's what I said too.
I was like, it sucked. That's my analysis for you. I don't want to talk about it right now. Sean, I'm going to give it the best I got today, which I think is more than what the offensive line did on Saturday. But I just don't know how much voice I have. But we're going to do the very best we can. Welcome to the folks on YouTube that are watching live and those that will be listening later on the podcast. I will be reading your comments throughout the day. Just help me out. Make sure you've liked the video and you've subscribed on the channel. We hopefully hit 100 subscribers this week. So we're back after having to restart the YouTube channel. So that's cool. Sean, before we went live, before we started the show today, I said, let's try our very best, because you and I are both very big picture guys. But I said, let's try our very best here to break down the game without leading too much into the overarching themes that is big game James and James Franklin. We have a bunch of fan questions that we got on X at Hardcore PSUFB, and we're going to let those maybe drive us later on in the show. But first, Sean, Penn State loses to Oregon 30-24. It was 3-3 at half. Both teams really struggled to convert on third down for Penn State and fourth down for Oregon for the majority of the game. The second half, Oregon had some good plays there. They had a kill shot early in the fourth quarter, and then Penn State did find some rhythm on offense to tie the football game. Overtime, Penn State scored first. Oregon then was able to respond. And then in the first play of second overtime, Oregon scores on the very first play. And then the first play for Penn State is an interception to seal the end of the game. What are your thoughts about the football game, generally speaking?
You know,
not to sound like your coworkers.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those games that you could just kind of tell from the start with the offense, things were just off. And it's been a common theme. I know we said we're not going to be big picture, but I'll get this medium picture. It's been a common theme throughout the past 3 years now that even just getting first downs, heck, even getting an 8-yard gain, just feels like we're just cranking it all out, and it's really hard, especially through the air. Run game picked up, especially in the second half a little bit. It was not at all in the first half, non-existent as passing game. But especially just getting things done through the air. It's just so hard. It looks so hard. And, it's hard to really pin it on anybody on offense because everybody had a hand in it. The offensive line sucked on Saturday. Was not good. drew 25 dropbacks, 18 pressures. That is garbage. That is horrible. They are better than that, and that is inexcusable from everybody. Drew, again, was not good. He nearly almost helped win us the game. Got to give him that. He battled back. But you can't just be non-existent for 3.5 quarters and just go down with and he was going down with the ship, and he helped right it, but he didn't do anything to help us. Katron was Katron. One of the only guys I don't really have too many complaints about. Singleton, the struggles continue with that. So, and I'll also talk about the defense a little bit too. I know we're probably going offense first, but just big thing with the defense, they played well, but they didn't force enough big plays. Didn't get any sacks. There's really no pass rush. But I was like, did Zane Durant play? Because it felt like he did nothing. I saw him there, but he wasn't doing anything. And I thought a big play in that game, maybe the biggest, was the fumble getting called back. Because it literally was a 7-point swing right there. Because Oregon scored the very next play. So that's kind of an overall view. But we're gonna get more into the details as the show goes.
Yeah, I think we'll talk more about the defense, but I agree with you, right? Like, I was arguing with some people online today about the defense, and look, I think they played okay. You could argue they even played good. But in a whiteout environment, to not have any sacks, technically the box score says 1 TFL, but they had a second. Amari Campbell had a tackle for loss that did not count, but it was a tackle for loss. They said it was 2nd and 10 still, but it was definitely like a yard loss. So he did get hosed on one of those, but still 2 TFLs, no sacks, no turnovers in a whiteout. No, that's not enough. I mean, credit Oregon for how they played and how well they stayed on schedule, and they put Dante Moore in really good situations. When I watched that film back, at first I was leaving the stadium and I was like, wow, Dante Moore is the bee's knees. It was a little bit more Dwayne Haskins performance than I realized. A lot of screens, a lot of quick throws, hitches, slants, but he did still have multiple 3rd down conversions with his legs and also buying time and then finding receivers down the field to move the sticks in crucial situations, which Drew Allar did not do. Sean, my biggest thing on this, going back to what Donnie and Collins and I were talking about so much last week, the box score, the scoreboard itself makes this game look close. This game was not close. I spoke my prediction. I had Penn State winning big. Obviously wrong. But I prefaced that by saying, if it was a close game, I think Oregon wins. And I have way more faith in Oregon winning this football game if it's close than Penn State. This game really wasn't close, though. I don't know how Penn State got to 100-plus yards of rushing. I think Drew Allar probably helped out a lot there. Trebor Peña helped out a little bit there. They could not run the football. They couldn't run the football at all. Even Katron Allen, he ended up with 4.5 yards per carry, but he had 1 run for 19 yards. That makes that look a lot better. Without that, he's 11 carries for 39 yards, which is just not good. Nick Singleton, long of 6, 11 carries for 21 yards, 1.9 yards per carry. And I think it's the running backs. But like you said, it was really the offensive line. And if you're getting beat that bad in the trenches, this should have never even been close. I give a lot of credit to the Penn State fans, the student section, myself. That atmosphere was amazing. And it really, I think Dan Lanning was very conservative as far as how he ran the offense. They didn't take very many shots. They played it very conservatively. More time of possession, dink and dunking. If that game's in a neutral site or that's at Oregon, this may have very easily been 35-7. Just the way that they dominated on both lines of scrimmage. So not a close game as far as the box score goes. And I think a lot of that is due to, like you said, the offensive line. But if you look at this game and you're like, hey, They had a chance to win it. They got the double OT with Oregon. That's not too bad. No, it wasn't that close. They had 3 points for the majority of the game. The offense looked toothless. They looked lifeless. They looked soulless. And I think I'll just wrap up by saying this. Football is not that hard. Offense is not that difficult. I think Jahan Dotson was the one that tweeted it after the game. The offense shouldn't look this bad. It shouldn't be this hard to move the football. And they're going to need to go back to the drawing board completely, because if they can't find 5 guys up front that want to be there and want to compete and want to kick some ass and want to move some people, then forget about national championship. Forget about even potential playoff contention. They got to find 5 guys up front. So that, to me, Sean, like you said, kind of the biggest kick in the nuts was just the fact that we went into the season expecting that offensive line to be able to dominate. And in a game against Oregon at home, you thought you had the advantage on the offensive line and defensive line, and they whooped our ass in both of them.
Yeah, I disagree with a little bit with what you said. The second to last point you made, that it really wasn't that close. I mean, we had them 4th and 1 in overtime to win the game. So factually, it was.
Let me say,
I know what you're saying. Did they outplay us? Yeah. I mean, Bob Square is going to tell you that they outplayed us, sure. But did Ohio State outplay us in 2016?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
And
but
that's a good point, right?
You know,
think about the Orange Bowl, right? Mm-hmm. We all think we outplayed Notre Dame. Notre Dame found a way to win the game. If we would have found a way to win the game last night, I still would have said Oregon outplayed us. I think that's what I'm really getting at here.
I would too.
Oregon was the better team. They deserved to win. And if we would have found a way to win, I would have given them a lot of credit. I would have given James Franklin a lot of credit. I would have given Drew Allar a lot of credit because they found a way to win a game they shouldn't have. But this was not a game that they should have won. And people should not be walking away with any sort of moral victory that, hey, we almost beat Oregon, because that really wasn't the story here. That's what I meant.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So, I mean, the glass half full way of looking at it, I suppose, is we played as poorly as we could have played on offense. I'm hoping, I hope against hope, because Ohio State's defense looks really good. That was the worst game on offense we play all year. And still almost won it. And part of that, yes, is the crowd. But part of it is the defense. And I know the defensive line disappointed me as well. I do think part of it, and definitely not all of it, was scheme. I think Jim Knowles leaned hard into bend but don't break. And we're going to keep everything in front of us. We're not going to get beat over the top. And we didn't. And the safeties and the secondary, they lived up to the hype. So did the linebackers. I thought Amari Campbell and Tony Ross played their balls off. They were really, really good, especially Amari Campbell. He really impressed me. I didn't know if the lights would be too bright for him. He was one of the things I was really worried about on defense. The lights were not too bright for him at all. I thought that was his best game that he's played so far with us. But yeah, we didn't get enough done on the defensive line. And I'm hearing All-American candidacy for Zane Durant. Forget about that. He didn't look all Big Ten. He didn't do anything. I mean, what do I make of that? And I think one of the disappointing parts of the game was on third down on defense. Now you're probably thinking, well, I don't know, we stopped them a lot on third down. Yeah, but they kept getting 4th and 1. And T. Frank actually mentioned this on his show. If you get to 10 years ago, that's great. But now you get to 4th and 1 and you're over the 35-yard or 40-yard line. They're going for that. Especially when your offense looks as bad as it looks. And if it's better than a coin flip, if you have a better foot than a coin flip chance and your offensive line is as good as Oregon's is, you're going to pick that up most of the time. And they did. So that also contributed to them being gassed at the end and us not having enough in overtime. Court, I wanted to ask you something about overtime specifically. My brother and I were having a debate, which we ended up agreeing on. Do you think we should have went for 2 in regulation?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because we did have a question from Braden Miller, who asked the exact same thing. So, Braden, appreciate you being here. I'm okay with it. I'm not. I get why you would maybe consider it given the defense's gas, but you have all the momentum at home.
That's what I thought too. I thought we should have kicked.
You kick the field goal, you go to overtime, and also I think he's a little bit vindicated by the fact that the offense immediately gets the ball and scores a touchdown. Now, if you tell me that we have especially our offense at 2-point conversions, who have been awful at 2-point conversions since Franklin's been there, if I have to choose between our defense getting one stop in the south end zone with the student section behind them or a 2-point conversion, I'm still taking the defense, even if that is happening today or tonight. But in hindsight, I get it. The defense was worn out. Once they got to second, third, fourth overtimes, those guys have been on the field for 80-plus plays.
I thought we were going to win after we scored the first overtime, because I was thinking exactly what you were thinking. We're in the student section. Defense got a little bit of a rest there too. In between the fourth quarter and the overtime.
That's a good point.
So they had a little bit of a rest, and that's part of why my brother and I ended up agreeing, yeah, we should kick here, because we could try to score, which we did, and then hopefully they could ride that momentum and have just enough adrenaline to close them out, but just couldn't do it. And that really sucked.
Yeah, I can give you, I mean, technically, from approximately, when did this drive start? From 12:25 remaining in a fourth quarter, Oregon only ran 10 plays on offense. And most of that was, 4 of those were 30 seconds left. So really did I get that? Yeah, 10 plays. So you're right, Sean. 10 plays, 3 of them were basically, last second, just Hail Mary kind of effort stuff. They weren't really driving or anything like that. So you're talking about 10, really like 20 minutes of game time that they had a break on. So I think that's a really good point to bring up.
That's what I do, man. But yeah, I mean, and then when they scored, I did think we were in trouble, and I forgot you got to go for 2 in the second overtime. I feel like they tweak those overtime rules every couple of years. So
I think they changed them again after the Illinois one, because they wanted people to start going for 2 even sooner, because they didn't want necessarily to turn into that 2-point conversion marathon that happened after Illinois. Right. Also, I didn't notice this until I watched the broadcast the next day, or actually today. After the second overtime, you only get 1 timeout for the rest of the overtimes now. So remember that Illinois game we're just bringing up all the worst things today, but everyone just kept using their timeout right before the 2-point conversion, because you had one for either on offense or defense, and it just took forever. Now you only get 1 for the rest of the game, which I think is actually, if you're going to do this stupid 2-point conversion, at least only give them one timeout. So that was at least a beneficial. Also, the interception, like if DDS takes that back, Penn State would have only needed to score a touchdown, and then the game would have been over, right? Is that how that would have technically worked?
That's how it would have worked.
Okay.
Yeah, because as he was running, I was thinking that. I was like, okay, what happens if he scores here? And I was like, all right, I think it's only 2. It's just like if you're kicking an extra point and you ran it back.
I need to go look one more time, but when I watched it again, it looked like one of the Oregon offensive players did get his face mask for a second. It would have been a ticky-tacky call, but in my mind, I'm thinking they would have thrown a flag there for a face mask. That would have been half the distance to the goal on Penn State's opening series, and maybe they don't call that play and there's not an interception. It's a very big what if, but it's one of those little things that if they would have thrown a flag for a face mask, maybe we don't run that play. We change things up. I don't really know, but anyway, that was one thing that I thought maybe they got his face mask there, but anyway, Drew Allar, Sean.
Yeah. Yeah, he's him. Not him. He's him. He's Drew.
It's so polarizing to talk about Drew Allar, because
it's becoming less though for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. I don't know how to describe him because a lot of people, it's very easy to say, oh, like Drew Altmaier, low ceiling, but high floor kind of guy, right? Sean Clifford to a certain degree like that. Drew Allar is turning into this like high ceiling, incredibly low floor, where he can look like the best quarterback in the country at times, and then very quickly look like the worst quarterback. I saw Corey Geiger said he wouldn't draft him with any pick in the NFL draft, which I think is a little bit of an exaggeration. But at times he looks completely pathetic. And then obviously there are times where he looks amazing. The touchdown pass to Ross was a perfectly thrown ball over the top of the safety, hit him in stride, perfect. And yet there were multiple throws where you're just like, what? Now, Sean, unfortunately, because we talked about this for the last couple of weeks, we'd like to see them go more tempo and go faster. Well, the problem is we can't go tempo anymore because the offensive line forgets how to block anybody, which that one tackle for loss, I think T-Frank did a quick little breakdown on Twitter about it, where we outnumbered them to that side. We went, imbalanced formation, had a multiple offensive linemen on the left side, and we just didn't block anybody. I don't get it. I truly don't get it. So you can't go tempo to help the quarterback. So you slow it down to maybe help the offensive lineman, but then your quarterback turns into just basically an ordinary 3-star quarterback at best. I don't know what you do, Sean. Because I honestly think like Devonte Ross, and like we talk about silver lining, I agree with you on Amari Campbell and Tony Rojas. Silver lining on offense is Devonte Ross should be getting the ball 20 times a game at this point. Until someone else proves otherwise, I don't know how they don't get him the ball like 20 times a game. And even the screen pass where I think it was Amari Washington for Oregon read it really well and was in the way, and Drew Allar had to throw it high to get it over to him. Even if Ross catches that late and doesn't have a running start, we still had 5 guys over there and only had to block 2, and we couldn't block either of them. So they did try to get Devonte Ross the football more, but we couldn't block for him even in the simplest of occasions. So Devonte Ross should be getting the football all the time. Trebor Peña should get the football all the time. Anyone else, I think Nick Singleton in the passing game should get the football all the time. Anyone else has to earn it. Drew Allar should not be targeting anybody else. I saw a weird stat. I want to say it was Joel Haas on Twitter. The incompletion percentage to people not named Peña or Ross or Singleton was terrible. But to those guys, it was pretty good. Sean, I don't know what you do with Allar because I think he can be really good. But I'm going to just wrap up with this rant. When he looks at his best is when he sees nothing, and he takes off for 3 to 4 yards. And he gets up, and they go fast, and they just figure it out. Little pro-style stuff, whatever. But that's when he's at his best, when he's like getting hit, and he's in the game, he's moving his feet. It's like if he doesn't run enough, his legs start sticking to the ground, and his footwork goes to shit. So if that's the case, I don't care about him getting hurt anymore. We've already lost the game. We're in wounded animal mode. Let him be him. For Christ almighty, just let him be himself. Run the rock when he wants to run the rock. Let him scramble. If it's for 2 yards, great. If it's for 4 yards, great. Let him play as if we're down 14. And if he gets banged up because it's a little bit more risky, so be it. But we can't go 3 quarters and only score 3 points.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think he plays his best football when he's running. I think it surprises me that he didn't run more early, because late he did. So. And what do you know? That's when he was playing at his best. But I don't know why they're not rolling him out more. I think he's pretty good. I think he's pretty good throwing on the run. Also, he tends to be at his best, and he threw the pass to Ross off of play action. Now, what's the thing about play action, Corey? You need to have a run game, or nobody's gonna respect it. Right. So really, a lot of this does come back to the offensive line. But I think just how erratic he is, and you just don't trust what's coming next, because then he plays really well in the fourth quarter, and then we score in overtime, and then he still throws the interception to end the game. I don't know what to do with that, because you're like, all right, Drew looks good. He looks like he's found a rhythm, which he clearly did, and he still throws the interception.
You know what I think would have helped? You know what I think would have helped in that situation? Because he hadn't been on the field for 2 possessions because Oregon had to go back to back, right? Now, the one was obviously very quick. But again, in my opinion, we talk about like a lot of quarterbacks, like get them in rhythm by getting them an easy throw. I don't think that's how you get Drew Allar in rhythm for a drive. You know how I think you get Drew Allar in rhythm? The first play of every drive should be a quarterback blast up the gut. Let him just run for 3 yards right up the gut. You have Luke Reynolds pushing him. I guarantee you're not going to lose a couple yards. Just let him run right up the gut and just make some contact with somebody. Because just let him get some sort of, I'm in this game, I just got hit. I don't think he gets rhythm like other quarterbacks that, by hitting some dinks and dunks, because he still has his feet relatively just stationary. I think he gets into the game by moving his legs. It doesn't always have to be a run up the gut, but I think it doesn't need to be a play action pass, or it needs to be a read option. It needs to be something where he is moving. If he's stationary, especially early in a drive, he looks so bad. And I think him taking a couple shots does get him in rhythm. So I would have liked to see from now on, we talk about establishing the run, how important it is for Penn State, right? Well, guess what? Everyone's going to try to stop Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. But you know what they're not ready for? Is if we try to establish the Drew Allar running game early. Get Drew Allar 3, 4, 5 carries in the first quarter. Let him settle into the game the same way you would want your running backs to. And let's just see if that's any better. And also, may I add, go back and watch the Trebor Peña run in the first overtime. Watch what that linebacker does on that play. Typically, Peña probably would have picked up 4 yards there. But that guy bit, and he bit on Drew Allar because he was worried Drew Allar was going to keep it, because Drew Allar kept it on a 4th and 1 earlier in the game. And now that play that had been going for 4 to 5 yards went for a big gain and set up the touchdown 2 plays later. That is what you need, because you can't rely on the offensive line just to punish people, and you don't have Bo Prabila. You got to establish more running with Drew Allar. That's the only thing I can think of, not just for Drew Allar's sake, but also for the sake of getting the rest of the running game going.
Yeah, just getting everything going, right? And I think that's part of one of the things I really worry about with this offense in general, even beyond Drew, is all the defense coordinators in the Big Ten just figured Andy out, because it's all kind of eye candy, right? And I think even he would admit that. And part of what I worry about is, you've seen The Wizard of Oz, right, Corey?
I have.
Do you see Wicked?
I had walked into the room while my wife was watching Wicked multiple times.
Yes. Yeah, my wife loves Wicked. So anyway, what's the big thing, like two-thirds of the way through the Wizard of Oz and Wicked? Everybody thinks the Wizard of Oz, he's magical, right? He's going to make all your wishes come true. I worry that's Andy Kotelnicki. And the reason I worry about that is the secret is the wizard has no real power. And it's all just a fugazi. And he's actually really easy to figure out. And that's kind of what I think Andy Kotelnicki might be. Because Jim Knowles figured him out last year. And now it seems, obviously, Tasha Lupoy, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, figured him out. Hell, even FIU figured him out. So is all of this window dressing and all this pre-snap stuff, they just know what we're going to do? And I think part of how, and Frank, you know what I noticed in the press conferences, Franklin kept talking about, we have certain tendencies. That means we do things really well. Well, the problem is, James, I think you have too many tendencies, because I think everybody already figured them out, and you're getting too predictable. And I'm not a defensive coordinator, but they're paid a lot of money, and they have figured this out.
Is the only pushback is, are you predictable because you don't have an offensive line? Are you predictable
that
because you don't have a good quarterback? Right? Like, if I know if you know a dog isn't going to bite you, you have no problem petting it. And I think that's sort of the problem right now is, the offense looks very predictable. But the only thing I would say is, are they predictable because they don't have anything else to do? Like, you have Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, but if you can't block in the run and you can't protect Drew Allar, you can't do anything, right?
Do you think part of it, though, is too much zone blocking, and maybe we should just be more downhill?
I'm not against anything at this point as far as that. Zone, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen were able to run inside zone and outside zone a lot better with a worse line, even say 2 or 3 years ago. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and like the thing is, were they a worse line? Because the line 2 or 3 years ago, they were better than this. What we saw on Saturday, and I don't know. I just,
the offensive line, Sean. Let's just talk about them real quick.
All right.
What the hell is going on? The only thing, and we were texting about this before the show started, the only thing we really thought we could count on was the offensive line this year. We thought the receivers were going to be better. They had to prove it to us. We thought Drew Allar would have to take the next step. They had to prove it to us. We didn't really know what the linebackers were going to have to do. The defensive line had some depth concerns, but we all knew the offensive line was going to be good. I don't know if they drank the Kool-Aid. I don't know if Frank Leonard is the offensive line whisperer and we just are nothing without him. But Sean, what is going on right now with the offensive line?
It's hard to say, because look at what we lost last year. Sal Wormley, God loves Sal Wormley. He's probably our worst lineman last season.
Yeah.
And he is the only one that moved on. And the 5 guys that we have all started. Now, Donko was obviously at a different position, but he started for more than half a year. And then it really felt like Nolan Rucci, the light turned on for him. And now that light it just flickered, I guess, and it's off. But you'd think a guy with that much talent, with that much athletic ability, that can move like he can at his size, which is very, very rare, you thought he's going to be an NFL lineman. And he's going to get drafted in the first 3 rounds next year. And nope, no, we ain't. At least not playing the way he is. And God, Nick Dawkins was really horrible on Saturday. And I hate saying that because Nick Dawkins is one of the leaders on the team and seems like a great guy, but Bear Alexander looked like a bear playing against him. And then the other guard spot just seems like a mess because Donko, I think he's just out of position and a lot of growing pains. And then TJ Shanahan, Cooper Cousins. Cooper Cousins is, I don't know where. All you heard about last year is how good he was going to be. He doesn't play. He comes in for those when we put 7 or 8 linemen on the field, and then we don't see him the rest of the game. Shanahan's always the first guard in. And I don't think Shanahan is anything special either. So
I think Shanahan's he's a great 6-man, maybe at best, but I wouldn't want to be a starter.
Yeah, at best. And then Drew Shelton. I don't think Drew Shelton has progressed the way we wanted him to.
That's being nice.
No, he is. Yeah, I know. Even I've never been super thrilled by him, but I always thought he was a good player, and he hasn't been at all this year. So the only guy that I could really say has played well is Vanga, and you can't win. You can't win like that against anybody good like this. And I think it just sucks because I don't want to stay away from big picture, but they look like a 9-3 team right now, and that is a disaster if that happens. But I don't know how we're going to beat Indiana, Ohio State. Yeah. I don't know. Not playing the way they've been playing.
I want to go to the defense and the secondary. You had brought them up, but I just wanted to highlight. I thought generally speaking, I thought AJ Harris and Davian Collins and Zion Tracy and Zakee Wheatley played pretty well. Oregon had a couple big plays. Like, they're going to get theirs. DeCorian Moore is going to be something stupid special. AJ Harris had the ball hit off his face mask. Like, those are the things that just don't happen in other teams. That being said, AJ Harris really impressed me in the run game. Let me see. I want to say he ended up with
I should have tweeted about that.
Oh, good. I think he ended up having 7 tackles. Again, he had one that was borderline TFL as well. But he had multiple tackles that I was very impressed by. Zakee Wheatley, 10 total tackles, just has turned into Mr. Reliable. It isn't as splashy as Brisker, isn't as splashy as Jair Brown, just does all of the right things. And I'm just, look, regardless of how this whole season goes, I'm just going to be very proud of the way Zakee Wheatley has put in the work and went from maybe just like a splash play on turnovers to like reliable in tackling, reliable in coverage, reliable in being where he's supposed to be. He has worked his butt off to be where he's at. And that, if there's a cool story, no matter what happens, Zakee Wheatley is that story. I also just wanted to mention that I think that King Mack had a terrible game at the other safety spot. I think he really struggled in run defense. He had one big hit on Dante Moore, but otherwise he kind of got ran over multiple times. Thought he just did okay in pass coverage. I was a little bit disappointed there. Just to note, Day Lane and Antoine Belgrave Shorter did not play at that safety spot. So King Mack got all the reps at that safety spot. So that was a battle. Looks like King Mack at least had won it up to this point. Be curious to see what they do next week against UCLA, which is, by the way, a 3:30 kick. But I wanted to give some respect to the defensive backs that I was way more concerned about. They played way better than I thought they were going to play. And so I give a little bit more credits to that. Again, they didn't get any turnovers, missed a couple opportunities, but all in all, I thought they could have been a liability, and they actually lived up to their hype.
Yeah, I agree. I wish I tweeted during the game that AJ Harris played really, really well, because he did. Didn't really. We kept saying we're going to see how good he is in pass coverage. I thought he was fine in pass coverage. It was in the run game that really impressed me and how good he was tackling. I think he made himself a lot of money.
Sean, by the way, someone on YouTube, our buddy Michael Higgins, said that you could probably chip block someone better than some of the offensive line currently could. So there you go. That's where we're at.
There you go. Yeah. That really says it all, doesn't it? Zakee Wheatley, like you said, I never thought I'd say Mr. Reliable with Zakee Wheatley, because he was always kind of inconsistent. But he really figured it out and has developed nicely. I thought Zion Tracy played a good game. I think overall the secondary is part of the reason we almost won. Secondary and linebackers, like, they are the two units that I could think of that definitely played well enough to win. I mean, defensive line sort of did, but again, not enough splash plays, and that's what they're there for, to create those splash plays. Dennis-Sutton, I mean, we'll probably get into officiating too, but I do think if they officiated the game correctly, Denai probably would have had a sack or two because they would know that they can't just grab him, and that's what they were doing the entire game was holding Denai.
By the way, Campbell Rojas ended up with 22 combined tackles. I'm always nervous when Dennis-Sutton has 7 tackles but no TFLs. That kind of tells you how they're able to run the ball, and whether or not they held, which we know they did.
Yep.
Not being able to get home to the quarterback. Sean, I do want to get to some fan questions. We knew this might be a little bit of a longer episode, but I think this can steer us in a better direction here as well. And maybe this can turn us a little bit more big picture as well. Mudbug asks, why does it seem like we can never adjust to the blueprint to beating us, which seems to be stack the box, take away the run, and make Drew beat you? Where's the quick passing game? Why don't we ever throw quick slants, it seems? Every other team does it against Penn State's defense. You want me to take this one, or you want to take this one?
I'll take it. Yeah, I think it's kind of hard to say because we're two offensive coordinators. And look, part of this is, and I did tweet about this a little bit during the game, at some point it's on James Franklin, right? And I'm not team meddling, like, oh, he meddles, but I don't know, it just seems to keep happening with this offense. So either he's not hiring the right people, or I don't know. But I think we do have, to answer the question directly, though, I do think we have the receivers to run slants. Like, I think that's why you have Trebor Peña, right? He is your slot guy. He gets open. Same thing with Devonte Ross. I think actually Kyron Hudson, who did not have a catch, that's probably what you want him doing as somebody who doesn't get a ton of separation, but he's a big body, right? And he can get open in the middle of the field. So I agree. I'm not entirely sure why, but
I can tell you why.
Part of it. Why is that?
Because Drew Allar can't hit him. I mean, he can't throw the ball where it has to be. Like, it needs to be in the proper spot, and it's either high or if it's behind him. Like, they've tried slants, they tried seams. I mean, Kyron Hudson dropped one that would have been a hard catch, but he dropped. Luke Reynolds had one over the middle that he dropped. They're not catching the football. Drew Allar's not putting the ball where it needs to be put. They're just not doing the simple things that Oregon had some very underrated catches in that football game. Like Bryant had multiple catches where you're like, oh, wow, that was a pretty nice catch. That just was seen. It was only like 4 or 5 yards, but like you said, it kept them on schedule. We weren't making those simple catches even. And I know that the ball isn't always perfect, but like, we got to catch some of those. Luke, like Tyler Warren caught those at like an 80% clip. We're not catching those. One little thing I wanted to note, Sean, they started putting Trebor Peña as a wing back almost off of the line of scrimmage, and he's almost turning into like a Percy Harvin like role where he's coming out of the backfield a little bit more, because if he catches the ball in space, he can run for a little bit more than, say, Luke Reynolds can. I thought that was a nice little wrinkle. I would like to see more of that for that exact reason. More quick passing game. Let Trebor Peña beat somebody on a linebacker. I like that little wrinkle that they added late in the game. I think that helped him out a little bit.
Yeah, it just feels like nobody ever makes catches for Drew that are tough. The Hudson catch along the sideline is actually a great example. Not a great ball, but you got to catch that. Luke Reynolds also got to catch that. Was it a crappy ball? Yep. But you still have to try to make that catch, and it just feels like the only guy he's ever had that can make those has been Tyler Warren.
Let's go to the next
Devonte
question.
Ross against FIU.
Yeah. Yeah, Mark Thomas asked about Zane Durant. I think we covered that one pretty well, but appreciate you, Mark Thomas. I want to get to Dorito Bandit. He said he wanted to go a little bit more positive here. So Dorito Bandit says, I feel like the offense found something in the fourth quarter. Is there any chance the staff reviews the tape and builds off the success they had in the fourth quarter and forget about what they did from 1-3. Sean, I think if you're a Penn State fan, like this is what we're clinging on to, right? Like this is the only potential saving grace is, okay, we figured out how to move the football late in the game. And in a game in which Oregon wasn't necessarily, backing off extremely, they backed off a little bit, but they didn't back off obviously on the touchdown Devonte Ross, and Oregon wasn't playing. Dan Lanning's not conservative. Even when they got the football back, they were still throwing it, trying to score. So I guess I would say there is a chance on that, but it's nothing new. It's nothing we hadn't seen last year when Drew Allar had to go down and score against USC, or when they had to come back against Oregon. Like we've seen these spurts in the offense with Drew Allar and even with Andy Kotelnicki before. So I'm not necessarily positive that they found something. I do hope that if you go back and look, like you said, you wish Drew Allar would have ran the ball more. He did against Oregon in the Big Ten championship earlier. I do hope when they go back and say, like, yeah, you know what? Drew Allar probably should run the ball. I mean, honestly, Sean, would you be okay with this? Drew Allar running for 5 more times and taking 5 less carries from Nick Singleton?
Yeah.
I think I am. Which, by the way, I think Nick Singleton's great still in the passing game and needs to be a part of it. I just want to throw that out there. Like, he does some really good things, blocking and pass catching that I think you can't replace. Third down back almost, Shane Vereen-like almost maybe. But I would be okay with subtracting 5 to 7 rushing attempts from Nick Singleton for 5 to 7 true rushing attempts for Drew Allar.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, though, we've seen even games that people kind of forget. Ohio State 2023, we did score a touchdown late in that game. Michigan 2023, we scored a touchdown late in that game. USC last year went down and scored. We actually won that game. That's the only one that we won in that fashion. And then also last year, Oregon, and then 2 nights ago. So that has happened before. The hope is that it's kind of like 2005 Northwestern, if you could remember that game, where the offense was pretty anemic. And then we discovered, it turns out if you just throw the ball to Justin King and Derek Williams, good things could happen. And you kind of hope that's we have that with maybe running Drew more. But the thing is, Corey, why is this the game? Where do they come up with these game plans? Because at that point we abandoned the game plan. Like we threw the game plan out when we started doing that. How did they come into this? Sit around for 2 weeks and think, all right, we're good. And running this stuff, I don't know. That's the mind-boggling thing to me that we came in. And this is another common thing where we just come into these environments, come into these games, and we look real tight, and then we air it out late and start changing some things. But it's like, why not just do it going in? And that I don't know, and that kind of gets into the big game James stuff.
Yeah, and I think we're almost to that point. And I think that Michigan game, when it was such a big game early in the year, and offensively we couldn't do anything basically, and it's like why? And actually, I think that's I think the game I'm talking about is when Landon Tangwall got hurt before the game even started.
Michigan 2022. Yeah, yep. I was thinking Michigan 23 when we did the 2-point conversion. Mike Hughes' swan song.
But point being, we have looked tight to start games, and I don't know why on offense all the time. All right. Spring Bryn asked about the single biggest change besides the offensive line. I think I mentioned, I think they got to just let Allar run. And I'm only being hyperbolic a little bit when I say they should literally run quarterback blast up the gut. Like I really do think they need to get his legs moving on the first play of every drive to get him kind of going.
Were you happy not to see Liam Clifford?
He got out there.
Was he out there?
He got out there for a play.
I did not see him.
Yeah.
Maybe we need more Liam?
No. He got out there for a play.
More Denmark.
Speaking of that, not really that.
I'm actually serious about that one.
More. I am serious about the Denmark one too. I don't know why Denmark isn't getting more reps, but I think Ross and Peña have to be there. But after that, I think they should go less tight ends and just keep figuring out. I think Khalil Dinkins needs to play more too. I don't know why. I get Reynolds has some maybe bigger upside. I love Dinkins, and I think Dinkins needs to play more. I love Rapplier. I think Rapplier needs to play more. Wanted to mention too, Anthony Specca, when they were in a 5-4 defense by the goal line, Anthony Specca was the middle inside linebacker of the Mari Campbell. They put Rojas and Dom DeLuca on the outside. So if you're curious about where the next best linebacker is, crucial situation, Anthony Specca was the next guy out there, if you were curious about that. All right. We had a lot of questions, Sean, on Twitter. I'm guessing we're going to get some more questions on YouTube. Again, if you're watching live on YouTube, make sure you've liked the video and subscribed. Again, we're appreciate you guys all being here. Let me just I didn't get to do it earlier, and I really just want to do it, so we're going to do it now. I just want to show a little fan questions transition that I did not play earlier. Just because it's cool. Sean, we had a bunch of questions here about firing James Franklin. And is this kind of the straw that broke the camel back? Is Andy Kotelnicki gone? Does Grunkmeyer finally start? I mean, list goes on and on and on here. I'm not going to read all your guys' questions, but we appreciate it, and we think we get the sentiment. I think it's summarized best, though, by Joe Rogers, who says, as a Franklin guy, is a loss to Ohio State finally the tipping point to having him fired? Shane Luman says, should we have any faith in these coaches to turn it around, or is this an 8-4 team that was wrapped in hope and hype before the season? There's a lot more like that, Sean. I think at the end of the day, like Ethan Collins, overall thoughts on a program. What does Franklin future look like? Is Andy Kotelnicki the offensive coordinator that's next out the door? I'm going to just not ask you a question, but just wrap that all together for me and just tell me how you're feeling right now, Sean.
Yeah, I'm not really happy with where the program is right now. And I think I'm a lot with a lot of you guys. As far as calling for anybody's head yet, we are only 4 games through. So I think we all need to, and look, I have seen nothing from James Franklin that makes me think he's going to lead us to a national championship, especially this year. Because this was the game you needed to win. Everybody knew coming in, this was the one. You have to beat Oregon. If you lose to Ohio State, you lose to Ohio State. But you have to beat Oregon. And they didn't do it. And they had essentially 10 months to prepare for this. Let's be real. That they almost admitted they weren't really even that they were looking at the first 3 games as practice games. And you come out and you only have 3 points till 9 minutes or 8 or 9 minutes left in the third quarter. I mean, come on, man. Like that's how you're going to prepare for this? So, yeah, I'm pretty it's just I know what he's going to do. It's going to be something else. Last year was we didn't have receivers. This year, the offensive line suddenly, for some reason, goes to poop, and we can't fix the quarterback's psyche. It's just always something. But the common thing, you've had so many offensive coordinators, you've had so many quarterbacks. We've only had James Franklin for the past 10 years. So at some point, it's on him. And I don't think he's going to be the guy to win us a national championship. And maybe I'm coming to this realization later than a lot of you. I'm sure I am. I just don't think he's the guy. I think there are a lot of guys like him throughout the history of college football, the NFL. I think Brian Kelly's a lot like him, minus, the incidents. And he's less of an asshole than Brian Kelly. I think guys like Marty Schottenheimer and Mark Richt, all good coaches, all really good coaches. But when they get to the biggest moment, for one reason or another, they can't do it. And I know everybody will bring up the 4-21 thing. Even throw that out for a sec. Throw the 4-21 thing out for a second. We should have beat Notre Dame last year. And we should have beaten, well, maybe we shouldn't have beat Oregon. They play better than us, but we were favored against Oregon. And we had everything going for us, and we still lost. And how many times are we going to just blame the offensive coordinator, blame the quarterback, when James Franklin is still the head coach? Now, does that mean I want to fire him? Not right now. Because I still want to let this play out. I'm still kind of uneasy about the idea of firing him because I just don't know who you bring in. But this ain't doing it. And part of me hopes that he pulls a Brian Kelly and goes to Florida. I mean, because the only problem is I don't think we have Marcus Freeman on staff to just be like, all right, he's going to be the head coach. But it wouldn't be the most disappointing thing in the world. And something too, guys, sometimes things get stale, right? Andy Reid got fired in Philly. Mike Tomlin might get fired this year in Pittsburgh. Those are great coaches. But sometimes things just get a little stale, and I think things have. Because we're not able to get to that next level, and I think we just keep hitting James Franklin's ceiling. And that really sucks because I would have really liked to see him win a national championship with us, but I just don't think it's happening.
Yeah, before I go to that massive of a big picture, I think the bigger thing to me, and Sean, by the way, I'm in a very similar boat. If I'm not in the exact same boat, I'm at least in the same fleet. My bigger question right now that I think stems to the problem I have with Franklin is getting Andy Kotelnicki and knowing you have a quarterback in Drew Allar and you know what his advantages are and his disadvantages are. You know what he's capable of. You know what he's not capable of. And yet you go get an offensive coordinator that would prefer to have a Bo Perbila, a Trace McSorley, a Will Levis over, say, a Christian Hackenberg or a Drew Allar. But yet you go get Andy Kotelnicki anyway. And so the question that I am begging someone to ask James Franklin is, why did you do that? Why did you go get Andy Kotelnicki that I think him and Franklin agree very much on a fundamental level as far as how they want to play offense?
I think I have an answer, but go ahead.
And I think also the way they want to play offense is the correct way to win a national championship. I think your guy has to be able to threaten people now. The way defensive ends and outside linebackers have gotten with athleticism, your quarterback has to be able to threaten with his legs. So I agree with them. But if that's the case, and I'm not saying they could have maybe kept Bo Perbila, no. But go back 2 years ago when they first got Andy Kotelnicki. Why didn't they push to get Bo Perbila as a starter then? Saying, you know what, Drew Allar, you are a better quarterback through the air, at least when you're at your best. Go somewhere where you can throw the ball 50 times a game. I'm thinking like a Tyler Shuck type. And just do that. And good luck to you. But you're not really fitting us. And it's going to be a better fit if we have somebody that can move the ball. That happens all the time in corporate America. Hey, new CEO comes in, you're a great employee, but you don't necessarily fit with what we want to do now or how we want to take this company. Good luck to you. We'll write you a letter of recommendation. But there's a better place for you than here. And we need to get this done now. And I don't understand then why we held on to it. And then if we are going to hold on to Drew Allar, why we haven't done more to then assist him with what he's better at. Why haven't we gone more 5 wide? Can we seriously not block people? Why haven't we, done more to make him a better quarterback, to let him shine in a system that would be best for him, even if that isn't what Andy Kotelnicki would like to do long term? That's what I don't understand. And at the end of the day, Sean, I think it's back to what you were getting at is we have had a bunch of offensive coordinators. And so Franklin has got to pick his guy. The admin has backed, the firing of Kirk Shiraka after just 1 year to go get Mike Yurcich. And then after Mike Yurcich turned out to be kind of a douche, they went and got Andy Kotelnicki, who seemed to be the complete opposite. Team player, loves ice cream, fat dude, and loves football. And now that isn't necessarily working. At some point, you can only hire the wrong person so many times. And that to me is where I'm frustrated at right now. But at the same time, I just wrote a list. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games off the top of my head that I think Franklin should have won. And I disagree with a lot of people as far as like being favored or not favored. I think that, doesn't really matter to me as far as games you should win. But in my mind, let me add one more to that list. But like 2016 USC, 2017 Ohio State, 2018 Ohio State, 2018 Michigan State, 2019 Minnesota, 2023 Michigan, Notre Dame last year, Ohio State last year at home, Oregon this year. There might be some, there might be less, but like those are the games to me off the top of my head that Franklin should have won and he shouldn't have. And I think all the stars had aligned and he had no excuse not to win this football game. And to your point, not only not win this football game, but go back to what I said to start the entire episode. They did not play well. They laid an egg. They lined up and they got their ass whooped in a whiteout at home in primetime television. That's unacceptable. And on Twitter and everywhere else, people think me, especially as a huge James Franklin defender, you to a certain degree, but definitely me. I let the record show that is an unacceptable loss by James Franklin. And I'll let you potentially answer my question now.
Yeah, so as far as the plan with Kotelnicki, I think the plan was 2024 Drew is going to go to the NFL. And we're only going to have 1 year. We have this guy, Bro Prabul, who you'll be able to coach for 2 years. And then Drew didn't progress as much as we thought he would in 2024. And he ended up coming back for his senior year. And then we have now here's where we messed up. We probably should have given him the Carson Beck treatment and said, if you transfer out, you're going to go somewhere, you're going to get a lot of money, and you're going to go to a better offense that fits what you're looking for. Maybe an offense like Miami. Maybe he's in Miami now. And that's what we should have done. I think that's where we messed up. I was all right with hiring Andy because I did think that was the play. I think we even said it like, well, Drew's probably gone after this year. And then Drew ended up coming back after his senior year. But yeah, I mean, I would even add 2021 Michigan in that list. We had Michigan dead to rights in that game. We outplayed them. Even though we didn't have a good team in 2021, we should have won that game. So I would probably add that one to your list. But
yes,
yeah, I mean, at a certain point, it just comes back to James. And I have also defended him plenty over the years. In my personal life, on Twitter, and people think, oh, you're a huge James Franklin homer. I think Corey gets it a little bit more than I do. But I also do. And part of it is me and Corey, I think, are more aware than the average fan. I don't mean this. I don't mean this in a pompous way. I just think because we live and breathe this stuff a lot more than the average fan. How many structural obstacles we had here when Sandy was the AD and prior, and Eric Barron was the president, and there wasn't that alignment that we have now. And I think we cut Franklin a bit of a break because he was going one arm behind his back for a long time. But that's gone now, guys. And this was supposed to be the lead up to this year was supposed to be the lead up to, all right, everything's aligned. We have this senior class that's awesome, and we're going to go and we're going to kick everybody's ass now. And we're not even close. And I think that's where our big frustration comes from. At least that's what it is for me.
Yeah, they were comparing us to Michigan and Ohio State, the two past national champions.
Yeah, like, and Franklin himself was talking about a Joe Moore award for the offensive line. He was going to practice every day, seeing these guys, and I can't imagine they were lighting the world on fire in practice and saying, yeah, I think they could win the Joe Moore award. And it's like, what?
Yeah. D.A. Adam on YouTube said, I will say this. I trust Pat Kraft to make the best decision for the program at the end of the season. You know, I think this is an interesting point. And I think if Penn State wins a national championship in the next 10 years, I think you have to give James Franklin a lot of credit because I think he did pull us in to
no doubt
what college football is at this point, which you have to push that button financially. You have to push that button as a university. You have to push that button in every facet, like Georgia did especially. And I think Penn State is pushing that button. But what is sort of ironic and potentially sad and almost a tragedy would be if, in order for Penn State to completely push that button, they have to go find a different head coach. That's the part that it's almost like he had been pulling and moving this thing forward. And now we're going downhill. But now it's like he's not even pulling the rope and there's like slack in the rope. And now he's not even pulling at all. Now he's just running to not get run over himself. Like he's created a machine with high expectations that expects more than just 10 wins. They expect to win on Saturday. And if he can't get it done, he won't be here. I do believe that.
Do you think Pat Kraft would fire him?
I think Pat Kraft would fire him. I don't think he would do it. And I'm not even ready to discuss what it would take. But I think this loss, regardless of what you want to talk about before and those other games I listed, I think this is a loss that is one step closer to something like that. Indefensible.
Yeah, and I almost feel like something has to change. Now, something has to change doesn't always mean somebody gets fired. But maybe Franklin's whole philosophy. Neil Rodell actually asked a really good question at the press conference today about the way we handle bye week, because James Franklin is not a good bye week coach.
That's a great segue. Great segue. Yeah. What I wanted to talk about to wrap this up. I'm so glad about that. Up.
Yeah, James Franklin's not, and Neil Rodell, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, asked, why do you guys always go out recruiting in the bye at Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday during a bye week? And do you feel like things have to change there? And Franklin got kind of defensive about it and was like, what did he say, Corey? Something along the lines of, well, I'm not going to, it's easy to go and nitpick things, but like, James, we're not nitpicking, my man. This is a track record. And if I was Neil, I would have brought up his record after bye weeks.
Well, let me just back up a second. And so, yes, they were recruiting during the bye week. What really irked me about what James Franklin said was he understands it and everyone microanalyzes things after they lose. But what his defense was specifically was the fact that if they were then to win this football game, but then not have as good of a recruiting class next year, everybody would be wondering why they spent 2 weeks preparing for Oregon instead of recruiting. Let me make it very clear. Nobody is complaining about you preparing for Oregon for 2 weeks if we win the football game and then we don't get Joe Schmo out of high school. Because guess what? With the transfer portal, Joe Schmo might be gone in a year and a half anyway. But the most important thing is you don't think winning that football game might maybe make the difference for the 150 recruits that were at the game? You don't think that would make the most important difference to those people in the recruiting world? I thought that was a terrible thing that Franklin said there. That made zero sense. You cannot talk to me and tell me anything he did flying around in his helicopter did more for recruiting than winning the football game on Saturday. That is just stupid. The stupidest thing, probably the top 10 stupidest things James Franklin's ever said in a press conference. Because if he wins that game, yes, Penn State's probably number 1 or number 2. Everyone's excited. That fades over time. I agree with him on that. But most importantly, in the recruiting side of things, is he begins to lift that monkey off his back that is the 4-20 against top 10 teams. He can now go into neighborhoods and say, I whooped up on Dan Lanning, who's like the up-and-coming rising star that everybody wants to play for. They just got a kid from McDonough who's a true freshman who just whooped your ass. And you want to talk about recruiting? That was a dumb thing to say, and I'm glad you brought that up because I thought that if you tell me we potentially stopped them in the first overtime because we were preparing for another week instead of recruiting, I take that 10 out of 10 times. Who doesn't take that, Sean? That was the dumbest thing he's said in a long time.
Yeah, and I think James has had enough success here that he has gotten stubborn. And that worries me because he hasn't won enough to become super stubborn. Like Joe was stubborn, especially toward the end, but Joe had 2 rings. And Joe was old. Joe should have been coaching really after the 90s, but Franklin, you don't have the cachet yet. I know he's won a lot, and he's about to pass Rip Bingle this week, barring a calamity. If you don't have the cachet to be real stubborn and be like, this is how we do things, because, buddy, what you're doing doesn't work after bye weeks. You are a bad bye week coach, like notoriously bad. It's just something that he doesn't do well with, and part of it probably does have to do with you leave town for 3 days in the middle of the season. And not just you, everybody leaves.
And by the way, ask how being stubborn's working out for Dabo Sweeney. This is an adapt or die profession. And I thought he was over that a little bit because when Manny Diaz came, they did things a little bit differently. They didn't actually win in that Michigan 2022 game, but they at least said they were doing things differently. So I thought at least then they were trying, but then I think that was really dumb, and I'm going to that really angered me. Sean, I want to get out of here sooner than later. I just wanted to say the last thing that he did say, as far as the offense go, he said they were inconsistent. Allar was inconsistent, et cetera, et cetera. He said, quote, we will do whatever you need to improve. So
I don't know what that means, though.
I don't either. But
and part of it, too, is Greg Kincaid and Chris Peterson drive me nuts. Because James Franklin's so rehearsed at these press.
You mean the Penn State Gestapo?
The Penn State Gestapo, yes. He had a 13-minute opening statement today. And you can't tell me they weren't telling him to do that and just filibuster. Then Daniel Gallen repeats a question, and James Franklin answers it for 5 minutes.
Can you believe that shenanigans? Did he not hear the opening statement? Why did he ask a question that was literally already mentioned? Explain.
I have no idea. But again, Franklin he just filibusters and goes back to the same thing because he's so overcoached. And I know I'm really nitpicking on him now, but it's just something that always drives me nuts about his press conferences. And again, today he spent, again, it was a 13-minute opening statement. And you could just tell that and part of it is he is so insulated by yes men, and it is so apparent that Chris Peterson, Greg Kincaid never challenge him at all. And maybe know some things behind the scenes too about that. So,
the Oregon people were so surprised at how long Franklin's presser was too. Like that was
Yeah,
something
that's
that
just how
they
he is.
mentioned. They were like, wait, they get him for 40 minutes? Like that is one thing. It's like, yeah, we're glad, but I feel like maybe he doesn't need to say as much as he needs to say.
Yeah, because a lot of it's just like you said, he kept talking about. He kept going back to Jim Knowles talk to the defense this week about how they won the national championship last year. He repeated that like 3 or 4 times. He just kept going back to the same things. Promise we're inconsistent. We're so inconsistent. Like
Okay.
it's just cut it short then. Just have a 20-minute press conference.
Right. Exactly. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
By the way, if you need any graphic needs, Brett Koblitz, friend of ours, did our graphics for us, did some of our transitions, did our intros, did our outros. His information's in the bio. He does small things on the side. He does big things. Reach out to him. He'll take care of you if you need a logo for a small business. If you need some fancy logos for Instagram, whatever it is, he'll take care of you. Please reach out to him. He does a great job. Sean, we have the one and only Rich Scarcella coming on the pod Wednesday night. First time ever on the show. We've wanted him on for years. I know a massive silver lining in all this is getting Rich on the show on Wednesday night.
Man from the Reading Eagle. Love it.
He is making his way out to the West Coast. So we've not solidified a time yet, but I expect it to be a smidgen later. Just a little heads up there. But otherwise, if you haven't already, please make sure you've liked the video and subscribed on YouTube. If you're on Apple Podcasts, drop us a 5-star review. We'll read on the show. If you're on Spotify, please drop us a 5-star rating. And we will be back Wednesday to talk probably a little bit more about this, and then also somehow prepare for the 0-4 UCLA Bruins, who just look terrible. They just lost to Northwestern. The pick'em is out. You can go do that. Sean is on top of the leaderboard now. He's climbed his way to the top, which looks really good because I am doing nothing in that regard. So congrats to you, Sean. But you don't get a trophy for being first coming out of September.
Well, we're starting strong, unlike Penn State. So we're starting strong this year. Got to just keep a 1-0 mentality.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for being live on YouTube, and we will see you Wednesday night. Until then, that's Sean Kane. I'm Corey Listoki. You've been watching and listening to Hardcore Penn State Football. See you guys.
Have a good night.